have YouTube up and running. All right, so that's going. Let me pause. All right, so that's ready. So before we get started, just beforehand, if everyone on the meeting can just have your mics on mute so we don't get any background noise, much appreciated. We have more people coming in. All right, 1 second. And then Gwen, I'm gonna make you a co-host so you can share your screen when your time's up here. All right. So welcome everybody to our January program. I hope everyone had a great holiday season and that your start of the year is going off great too. It's kind of strange to see it's already near the end of the month. I don't know where the heck January went, but here we are. So I am going to start just with a few announcements. There's quite a few things to go through today. So I'm going to share my screen here. And then let's minimize this here. Slideshow. All right. So once again, welcome to the January program. Just to start off with our announcements, on Sunday, January 30th, we will have our next field trip. This one will be at Bill Baggs Cape Florida State Park. Now it's a pretty heavily visited park, so this one starts a little bit earlier than usual. So this field trip is going to start at 8:15 and run through 11:30. It will be led by Elizabeth Golden, who is the park's biologist. There's a lot of pertinent information for this field trip that can be found on the Talancia newsletter, and you can also reference it on the website calendar. There will be a work day at
Hold on, Brian, just a word on that field trip.
Yeah, go ahead.
I looked at the weather for Sunday morning.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be in the 30s inland. It's going to be around 40 degrees Sunday morning.
Mm-hmm.
Just to give you guys a heads up on that field trip.
It seems we're getting a bit of a cold spell. Yesterday was really nice. Thank you, Steve. And then following that, so in February, there will be a chapter workday at the Ernest F. Coe Visitor Center in Everglades National Park. The exact date is still to be determined, so keep a lookout for that. Patty Fairs will probably send a follow-up correspondence to members if anyone's interested. If you're a new volunteer and you're interested in going to that chapter workday, you can send an email to Patty Fairs. Her email is right here on screen. Just some preliminary paperwork that the park requires before you could sign up as a volunteer. Then on February 22nd, we will have our next chapter program. Steve Woodmansey will be giving a presentation titled Butterfly Gardening 2.0. Now, the exciting thing about this one is that it will be our first program back in person in, I think, a little over 2 years, if not almost 2 years. This pandemic has kind of inhibited us from having these in-person meetings, but the space we have rented out is not going to be our usual one. It's going to be the Banyan Bowl, which is an outdoor setting, and there's plenty of space for social distancing. We're going to have some COVID safety information on the upcoming newsletter. But this will be a hybrid meeting. So in addition to having the in-person live setting, we will be streaming it live if anyone wants to tune in, as well as just like all the other meetings that we've had here virtually. It'll be recorded. If anyone can't make it at the time of, they can still see it later on.
Brian, it's going to be in the main room. It won't be in the Banyan Bowl.
Oh, it's not in the Banyan Bowl?
No, we weren't able to get it set up for a screen. It would have been $600, so we decided to meet in the normal room.
I did not see that. Thanks, Steve. So belay that then. It will be in the regular room that we usually have our meetings in. We'll send out more information on this as well. So on Friday, March 4th, we have the application deadline for the Native Plant Society Awards and Grants, which includes the Conservation Grant and the Landscape Awards. There's several other ones that can all be referenced on the main Florida Native Plant Society website. The applications must have a chapter sponsor. So if you're interested in applying for one of these grants, you'll have to send it to us, preferably to the chapter email, and we will preferably with ample time to give us a chance to review it, to choose which one to sponsor. So try and get it to us with, I'd say, at least 2 or 3 weeks before that deadline. Then lastly, this year we will have, following last year's Native Plant Field Day, we will be resuming with Native Plant Field Day this year. It will be occurring on Saturday and Sunday, March 26th and 27th. There will be more information on how that's all going to go about in the newsletter, in the newsletters to come, as well as on the chapter website. If you have any ideas for field trip locations or field trip leaders, you can feel free to send me an email. I put my personal email on the bottom there, and I will get back to you. We also have a few new members that I'd like to welcome. So please welcome to the chapter Carlos Calatayud, Pamela Clark, James Poling, Monique Betancourt, and Warren Sharp. Welcome to the chapter, everyone. It's good to have you. If you're interested in seeing more on what we do as what Dade chapter of Florida Native Plant Society does, we have several social media handles: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. We have our website, and you can always feel free to send us an email if you have any questions on events or things in general relating to native plants at dadefmps@gmail.com. So that's it for announcements. So I can go ahead and introduce our speaker for today, who many of you already know, so she probably doesn't need an introduction, but I'm going to anyways. So we have Gwen Burzycki with us from Bound by Beauty. Just to give a bit of an introduction, Gwen Burzycki is a fashion-conscious member of DCFMPS who has served the chapter in several capacities, her favorite of which has been presenting programs at Native Plant Day. She is also an enthusiastic gardener with an environmental focus, and recently documented over 100 species of native plants in her yard, along with many species of birds, butterflies, and other native beneficial insects that have never been counted because they won't sit still long enough to allow documentation. I know that struggle, Gwen. Her professional life as a wetland ecologist and botanist working in land conservation and restoration has taken a hiatus while she recovers from the stress of filing paperwork for retirement. She currently serves on the board of directors for the Bound by Beauty organization, which is the subject of her presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing here. And Gwen, whenever you're ready, you can go ahead. Thank you for being here. You're muted, Gwen. There we go.
There we go. Okay, here we go. Slideshow. Okay, and by the way, I am wearing that outfit. It's just, I decided to stay warm. You can see a slightly different tie that beautifully goes with my pink hat and my purple scarf. So I am still fashion conscious, but I need to stay warm. So there. I want to talk to you a little bit today about stuff that a lot of you are already familiar with. It's just that I'd like to introduce you to a colleague organization that is centered in North Dade that does a lot of the same things we do. We've been extremely active about trying to be connecting people with the beauty, importance, and diversity of nature. And I'd like to share with you some of our programs. I'll give you a heads up that we haven't copyrighted any of these. So if the Dade chapter of the Florida Native Plant Society likes what we're doing, you are welcome to borrow. You take what you like, use it as you can. We hope you will, because we hope that our little programs are so effective at connecting people that this will catch on and a lot of people will be doing what we're doing. Well, who are we? This is, it's an educational nonprofit. We are 501c3. And so, yes, we take donations. And we were there on Give Miami Day the last couple of years, just like you were. And we are more than happy to have people contribute to what we're doing. We're also a very small organization, so we exist primarily on volunteer labor, but we do need money for supplies and so forth, just like you do. And our interest is in transforming how we interact with both nature and our neighbors. We try to engage neighbors to end up with more beautiful, resilient, and sustainable communities. And as you might expect, butterflies as our charismatic microfauna are the catalyst for what we do. We focus on doing butterfly related activities with neighborhoods and getting them excited about basically replicating what we're doing. The talk that I'm about to give really, this is the list of programs that we've got, the presence that we've got on social media. We have a foster garden program. We have something we call the Network of Neighborhood Nurturies, which has lovely alliteration, so you can remember what it is. We have a Greening South Florida program that right now is just focused on Miami shores, but we'd like to see it expanded. We have a little hands-on project called Seeds to Share. Our latest projects we call Weeds to Wildflowers. You'll see why in a little bit. And the very latest project, which is still kind of in its infancy, is butterfly circles. And you'll see why we call them that when I get to that. Okay, social media. Like everybody else, we try to have an active presence on social media. We do have a website. There it is. There's the name of the organization. You can find it easily. We're on Facebook as Bound by Beauty. We have a WhatsApp group called the Rebel Botanist Gang. The acronym RBG was actually, we really liked it, that it turned out to be RBG. We have a presence on Instagram, and we're just getting into posting on Pinterest. And our general goal for what we're trying to do is overall, we want to change mindsets and behaviors. As you all know more than anybody, we have altered this landscape enough that what we do with our personal properties really matters. And so if we can change people's mindsets about lawn is the thing to have in your yard, and we can get people excited about exploring the nature that's around them here in the urban environment, then we've done really well. We do this through communication, through education. We have free guides for download. We do sell some things through some local stores. Event notification and soliciting support are all things that we try to do with our social media, as do you. So this is very parallel. We haven't invented anything new. We're just joining the group and trying to reach out and find people that are interested in our message. Foster garden program is we're connecting people via caterpillars. And those of you who have started butterfly gardening, you know the syndrome. You bring the plants in, the butterflies find your plants. Pretty soon you have more butterfly caterpillars than you know what to do with. Your plants are getting chewed to absolute bits. And for a new butterfly gardener, that can be really discouraging. So what we do is we connect people that are having overpopulations and are having a problem with their plants surviving, with people that are just getting started. They have the plants, but they don't have the caterpillars. As you know, sometimes we have to introduce the caterpillars in order to get a population started. So this is one of the ways in which we can connect people and also distribute the butterflies from places where there are too many to places that would really like them. Also, as part of our foster garden program, we have a rescue squad for giant swallowtail caterpillars. As you know, they use members of the citrus family for a host plant, and that's fine if you're on the native wild lime, Xanthoxylum figera, because why would anybody plant wild lime for the butterflies? Because that thing is thorny as all get out, and I find it a little difficult to manage in my yard. But they also like oranges, grapefruit, lime, lemon, and we have people in the neighborhood are really not happy with having butterflies eating their citrus tree. So we also have groups that will go out and they will pick the giant swallowtail caterpillars off of your tree and transfer them to a host plant where the property owner is really receptive. And that keeps people very happy with having the butterflies. They're not going to spray the tree because they know they have a way to get rid of what they don't want. At the same time, this gives us a chance to educate them about the fact that these caterpillars really don't harm the tree, because we're contacting people, we're talking to them as we're in their yard. The caterpillars don't ultimately harm the tree. They just chew a little bit and then that's it. And I'm sorry, that's my telephone and I'm just going to let that ring forward. We have a program called the Network of Neighborhood Nurturies. And those of you who have been landscaping with natives for a while know that we get volunteers. And those volunteers, they become a potential problem in the yard because there's too many, we have to weed them out. So what we have is people that are more than willing to take these small volunteers, pot them up and make them available to neighbors who are just trying to get started. As we know, some of the native plants, because they're harder to grow, they're slower to grow, they can be beyond somebody's budget when they're just getting started and need a lot of plants. So we go ahead and we give them these starter kits of the volunteers that we've had in our yards, pot them up, get them out there, get people interested. And then as they get interested, then they, of course, transition to our native nurseries because they want more plants and they want them bigger. Greening South Florida is a program to basically mark and register folks for what kind of condition their yard is. This is the municipal boundary for Miami Shores. And I-95 is just a little bit off the screen over there. And this blue blob is Biscayne Bay. This streak here running through this red blob is the FEC Railway. And people sign up and they take a pesticide pledge. They let us know what they're doing with their yard, whether they are, the grass screen is chemical pesticide free and pollinator friendly landscaping. The grayish green, the soft green is pesticide free, but not necessarily anything unusual about the landscaping. And this happens to be St. Rose of Lima Church, which has worked with us. Then the red is chemical pesticides that are in use. And this great big red blob in the center of the village happens to be our golf course complex. And yes, they are using lots of pesticides. We have been trying to work with the village council to move into an integrated pest management system so that we can reduce the amount of pesticides, because it's particularly important for the golf course because this blue line right here happens to be Biscayne Canal that runs right through the golf course. And we're very concerned about pesticide runoff going into the canal, and it's a straight shot from there out to the bay. This map is updated And this is something that the idea could be replicated in other communities so that, you know, ultimately what we're hoping is we have a map of all of South Florida with these green dots all over them that over time begin to coalesce as people figure out that massive use of pesticides is not in their best interest. And there are other ways to do your landscaping other than just dumping pesticides because you think you might have chinch bugs next week. Our Seeds to Share program is our hands-on program. We have come up with a self-contained kit using easy to grow pollinator attracting plants. In this case, our prototype, and right now the only plant that we have for Seeds to Share is the tropical sage. It is a self-contained kit. We provide some peat pots. We provide an envelope full of seeds. And then the idea is to engage young people, school children especially, in learning how to plant with these pots. You can see this is the unit here. This gives you scale. The 6 peat pots here with newly germinated tropical sage. The kids get some experience with planting, with plants, with getting to watch their plants grow, put the seeds in, you water, you see the germination. When I was a child in elementary school, at one point we raised chicks from eggs. Well, this is similar to that. We're getting the experience of raising young plants from seeds. And one of the ideas behind this is that if we engage the schools, then the children can turn around and teach other people. They can bring this home to their parents and show them what they've done. Or ultimately, what we'd like to see is these young people doing service projects where they perhaps engage seniors in a senior center and get them engaged in doing this kind of work to raise the plants, which then can ultimately be transplanted out into individual pots and provided to people, planted out in their yard and so on. But getting people physically engaged in gardening to try to get them to understand how interesting gardening can actually be. Weeds to Wildflowers this really fits with our program a lot because this is our Changing Mindsets program. This whole project is based on the list of butterfly hosting lawn weeds that Steve Woodmansey came up with. And I'm going to put in a pitch for next month's presentation right here and right now, because Steve is doing an update of his program next month. So don't miss it. I'm not going to talk much about the plants. Steve is going to do that next month. I'm talking more about the program to engage people in looking for these plants. And these are areas, we're looking for areas where things are mowed, but if you have not maintained your lawn, if you let it go a little bit more natural, then you probably have some broadleaf plants that have invaded. And some people consider those to be weeds because it's not grass. But many of these are really excellent pollinator supporting plants, either butterflies, moths, native bees. Here we have, this is a Parosta moth on Biden's elbow flower. This is a dainty sulfur and another dainty sulfur over here that's just approaching. This butterfly was flying every which way. That little butterfly doesn't sit still. This was a still clip from a video. That's how we managed to get the shot. Also on Biden's. And this is a red-waisted florella moth, also on Biden's. And you can see from the scale of the flower, most of you have seen this flower, how tiny these insects are. And so these are places that they may be in your yard, but you don't notice them because you don't stop and look. If you stop and look, you see this, you eventually start to see this little motion And that's what draws your eye. And when you look a little bit closer, there's really can be tremendous occupation by these tiny little dwarf insects. So what we can do with this environment is get together and send kids on scavenger hunts where we give them some information. We can draw on the sidewalk. This all washes away after a rain, to show them what the plants look like, and then send them out to look for what we are alerting them to. And of course, we scout these places out beforehand so we know what they're going to find, so we know what to guide them to. We don't want the kids looking for a plant that doesn't exist in that area. This is another insect that we find in those environments. The white peacock is a little bit bigger, but again, look at this. It's nectaring on Spanish needle, which is absolutely, I'm going to do a sidebar here. This is my favorite weed to wildflower conversion for me. I used to pull it out all the time till I realized what a good pollinator plant it is. It's the only thing, as we get into the deep part of the dry season, like along about February, it's about the only wildflower that's still in flower in the urban landscape that is such a good pollinator plant. And so for those of you who wrestle with this, I allow it where it grows. When it gets too big and leggy and starts to set seed, I pull it out. But you can also keep it under control by whacking it off with clippers or a weed whacker after the flowers are exhausted and before it sets seed. It's really the seed that makes this plant weedy. It's a wonderful pollinator plant and definitely worth including in your landscaping. The scavenger hunts take very inexpensive equipment, an inexpensive hand lens. In the situations where we have been doing this exercise, we gather a bunch of kids and we give them chalkboards and chalk and ask them to draw what they see. So there's some eye-hand coordination development going on. There's some observational powers going on. And then sometimes we'll go ahead and we'll mark what they need to look for to guide them to the plants that aren't so common in this kind of environment. We'll guide them with this is a pink flag with butterflies stamped on it. So they know that somewhere in the neighborhood of the base of this flag, there's something you want to go look for. Doesn't cost a whole lot, very simple stuff. We don't use the phones. We don't have the kids take pictures. We prefer to use chalkboards and have the kids engaged in drawing. Our most recent project, and this is the one that I said is kind of still in progress. We're still working on it. We all know the problems of butterfly gardens in schoolyards and parks. Somebody is really enthusiastic about it. They get a grant, they put in a butterfly garden. The kids tend it for a couple of years. Then the teacher that supported it gets promoted or gets promoted or leaves, retires maybe. Principal that's been supporting it goes on, is moved to another school. Now there's nobody in charge, nobody doing the work to get the kids involved on a regular basis. So the butterfly garden gets neglected. And once it gets neglected, it begins to look not very nice. And eventually the new administration says that really doesn't look very good. Let's just get rid of it. And they mow over it and it's gone. And so this was something that we thought is a little more ephemeral, really would have less maintenance than a butterfly garden. Intended for lawns, private lawns, actually, schoolyards, parks, and providing a sustainable and biodiverse pollinator sanctuary, because what we're trying to do is simply find areas in a lawn, in a park, at a schoolyard, where we already have some of these really good dicot pollinator supporting plants in the yard and cordon it off and just stop mowing. And then if you want to augment the planting, you can do that. We prefer with seeds because seeds either germinate or they don't. They take hold, they do their thing. It's not a matter of the additional maintenance of putting a plant in the ground with a tender root system and then having to come back and water it to establish it. This is let nature take its course. And then when people get tired of the butterfly circle, they say, we don't want that anymore. You just start mowing again. And then those plants will still be in the lawn. They'll just be a whole lot shorter. But this way, by letting them grow up a little bit, you have something that will attract people's attention. The butterflies are flying a little bit higher off the ground. And so it's something that will attract people's attention and make them look. And you'll notice this is the sign that we've designed. This is a combination of Kim Heiss, a local watercolor artist, did the actual plants, and Melanie Oliva, a graphic designer, put it together to make the sign. And notice that there's a QR code here in the middle. And so that QR code can then link to information on this particular butterfly circle or butterfly circles in general, the list of plants, what butterflies they're supporting, pictures so that people can have a chance to identify what they see flying around some of these host plants. And we're guessing that this is going to be a really easy thing. We put the idea out there and we intended it for schoolyards and parks. We're negotiating right now with the Village of Miami Shores to put one of these butterfly circles at one of their parks. And the word got out and people have been already asking us for the sign because you might have a difference of opinion between two partners and the landscaping. One wants all lawn, everything neat, and the other one wants the butterfly garden. But they've been discouraged from that because it's not neat. Well, this is a way to take a small area and just exclude the mowers and then see what happens. And we think it's going to be really successful. It can be really ephemeral, or you can keep it around for a while. Now, one of the things that we wanted to put out, especially to this organization, is not all sites are alike. In Miami Shores, we looked at one particular park, and it was a park that was set aside after, at the request of residents, after a house had become an unsafe structure. And so the village bought the property. It's adjacent to an existing park. They bought the property, they tore down the house, and they sodded over it. So when we went looking, it's in an ideal location. We wanted to put the butterfly circle there, but when we went to look at the lawn has not matured. And there was too much grass and not enough of our pollinator supporting plants there. So we rejected that idea for our first butterfly circle. We went to a second park and found a lot more opportunity. So these sites do vary in biodiversity. If you're just getting started and somebody, you or somebody previous has been using weed and feed, it's going to take a while to get the natural recruitment of these plants. So being able to scatter some seeds in an area is not a bad idea. It's also something that would help augment. If you only have 2 or 3 species showing up in your butterfly circle, you can augment the biodiversity by just scattering the seeds, letting them germinate or not as they see fit. But we would love contributions of seeds from Steve's list, particularly the natives. Our priority species for what we'd really like to get more seeds of is the Passiflora superosa, the corky stem passion vine. you think that's pretty common, but if you're doing a butterfly circle away from trees out in the open, you're not likely to have this plant in there because the passiflora is bird dispersed. And so most of the volunteers in my yard, for example, come in under the trees. And so if I wanted one of these things out in the open, I might want to go ahead and put some seeds of the corky stem passion vine. That's, as many of you know, that's a really valuable butterfly plant that is host plant for our three most common heliconids, the zebra longwing, the Gulf fritillary, and the Julia. And it works so fast. Once this plant gets big enough for the butterflies, they will come. So this is a great way to jumpstart an area. Galactia volubilis it's a tiny little wildflower. And this thing is a powerhouse. It supports 6 different butterflies: the Zaruco dusky wing, the long-tailed skipper, the gray hairstreak, the Cassius blue, the Serranus blue, and the silver spotted skipper. So this plant has a lot of bang to the buck, but it's not common in urban areas. It's hard to find it. So if you have seeds, we will take them. Then third on our list is Camacrysta nictitans. It's one of the partridge peas. It's a lovely, common name is hairy sensitive pea. And this one is a good supporter of the cloudless sulfur, the Serranus blue, and the gray hairstreak. So you're beginning to see with the choice of these species, if we can front end load some of these seeds into our butterfly gardens, we get a lot of bang for our buck. And fourth on the list is Lepidium virginicum, which is the pepperweed. And a lot of people, myself included, have pulled a lot of pepperweed out of their yard, and that's really too bad, because the pepperweed supports, I picked that because it supports the great southern white and the checkered white. And we do not get the white butterflies in the urban areas very often. So bringing in the seed from the pepperweed and putting in these butterfly circles will introduce people to butterflies that they don't usually see. Well, here we are. We're coming to the end of the show. This is, I didn't want to make it too long. I wanted to give people plenty of opportunity for questions if they have it. This is how you get hold of us. If you want to take a screenshot, or just remember Bound by Beauty. However you're going to look us up, the organization is called Bound by Beauty. We have a website, boundbybeauty.org. Our email, if you want to get hold of us, is info@boundbybeauty.org. We are on Facebook. We're on Instagram as @the Bound by Beauty Project. And we've just started a screen for Pinterest. So this is the link for how to look at what we're posting for Pinterest. And last but not least, I want to give a lot of thank yous to the people that supported me for this presentation. First of all, to Mary Benton, who is the founder of Bound by Beauty, and she is our idea generator extraordinaire. To Steve Woodmansey, who triggered a lot of what I'm talking about with his information on lawn weeds that attract butterflies. And I'm going to pitch again. He's talking next month. Don't miss it. He's going to be given the presentation on the plants, a lot more information on the plants than what I had time to do here. I'd like to thank Kim Heiss, who is a fabulous watercolor artist. All of this watercolor clip art on all of these slides, it's Kim's work. She does a fabulous job. For those of you who are interested, this is her website, www.kimheiss.com. Her art is for sale. So I'm going to pitch, she's a wonderful artist. I want to thank our Rebel Botanist Gang members, including Mary, Leangie Callie, Maria Font, Avra Gardner, Kim Heiss, and Melanie Oliva for providing the photos that went into this presentation. And again, Kim for providing the watercolors. And then a thank you to Patricia Bonaduce, because she's the one that developed and maintains the Greening Miami Shores map. And with that, I think that's my last slide. And I'll take any questions.
Thank you very much, Gwen. I do have one if I can kick it off. So I'm wondering for the Kame Krista, is there a reason why you chose Nyctatins over some of the other ones? I know Fasciculata is also a pretty popular plant, but it does get kind of big, so maybe that's the reason.
That's exactly the
Yeah.
reason. Fasciculata is big. It's not going to be already in a lawn that's being mowed, where Nyctatans is a lot smaller. So you have a chance of finding it in a lawn that is being mowed.
Okay.
It comes from Steve's list, and his list is derived from plants that you would find in a yard that's not being irrigated and fertilized.
Okay, so we'll see a bit more about it, I imagine, next month too.
Yeah.
I did see at least one question in the chat. So Barbara McAdams asks, if we have seeds we can share, where can we mail them to? Do you prefer that they're mailed? And she's also raising her hand.
They can be mailed, and Jesus, Mary on this? I should ask her. If she wants.
Mary sent me her address privately, but if you guys want to come down to Homestead, I'll load you up, but I can also stick them in the mail.
Either one, Barbara. Just contact us and we will make arrangements to get seeds from you.
Well, let's
Very
make Joy
kind
be
of
the
you, Barbara.
courier. Joy can carry them up there or something. Not just kidding.
Well, I come down south periodically also. I'm involved in some of the I'm involved in some volunteer projects that take me south. So either Mary or Joy is one way. We can transfer them to Joy and then I can pick them up from Joy. It really is the thing that I am the most frustrated about this county is it's really long and really big with a monster traffic snarl right in the middle.
Yeah.
So North Dade people tend to stay with North Dade, and South Dade people tend to stay with South Dade, and it's a little challenging to get them ferried. But certainly mail is one way, or the coconut telegraph.
Yeah. Hey, one more thing. I have a tip for you for the Bidens, because I love it too, but it can get ratty looking sometimes. So I try to keep I have 3 places where I let it grow. And when one starts to look bad, it gets weed whacked, but another area will be looking good. So there's always a spot where it's growing in my yard for a nectar source.
I actually, that's a wonderful suggestion, and I kind of do something along those lines, because as I'm getting older, I can't spend as much time in the garden as I used to. So I have areas that I rotate to go through and weed. And so I'm essentially doing the same thing that you're doing, only instead of whacking them off with a weed whacker, I actually pull the plants up and let them start, because by the time I get to a particular area, everything is in seed. And so I pull the plants up, I'm distributing a bunch of seeds. By the time I get back to that area, I've got young plants with flowers on them. And that seems to have worked fairly well for me.
Yes.
But no, that I love the idea of setting things aside, because if you weed whack everything at once, then there are no flowers, and it takes a week or two for the plants to bring them back. So that kind of phasing and maintenance, it fits with the cycles of flowering for the plant, and it also fits with how much time we usually manage to spend in our yard anyway. So thank you, Barbara.
That was also a nice Biden's Alba bouquet I saw in one of those photos.
Yeah, it's a beautiful wildflower. I mean, in our native plant bouquets that we do for some of the educational festivals, Biden's is almost always included because it's a very pretty plant when it's in flower.
Absolutely. Are there any more questions for Gwen? You guys can feel free to unmute to ask as well.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Cindy. I just wanted to say I started to put something in the chat box, but this is kind of informal. So, we all knew that Gwen was not going to sit still during retirement. But this is so cool. This is, inspiring for those of us who are looking to retire ourselves, hopefully a few years down the road. But I'm so proud of you, Gwen, for doing all this and, taking your knowledge out to the community. And it's just fantastic. And Bound by Beauty gave a presentation here in Miami Springs, where I live, some years ago. But this stuff is so cool, and you've adapted it to, the conditions of a suburban neighborhood, which makes it more likely to succeed. So thank you, and my hat's off to you, and just keep it up. It's really inspiring.
And actually, I can follow up with that, because I had a question that was in regards to the projects. If you have any particularly favorite project that you've done with this organization, and any really inspiring moments, that there's a lot of doom and gloom when you see how much urbanization there is in Miami, but it seems you guys are proving that something can be done about that in relatively simple ways too. So I was interested in knowing if you had anything in particular that stands out.
It's actually this is a really positive organization. The people that I'm working with are, we're all interested in doing something positive, in getting people's attention, in getting it's attitudes about landscaping, as you know, that's a very big train that's hard to turn. But I will tell you, and it doesn't turn immediately. I will tell you, in the 30 years that I've been living in Miami, when I started informal landscaping, emphasizing pollinators, I had a couple of interactions with code enforcement. And Mary told me recently that she has talked to our code enforcement officer. She took him on a tour of her garden at her house. The guy was enchanted. And we've got him on our side at this point. He really loves the concept of what we're doing, and he's not going to be citing people just for butterfly gardening. Whereas when I started this, I got cited for overgrown vegetation. One man's overgrown vegetation is another man's informal landscaping. And with my first code enforcement contact, I spent about an hour with the officer at the time, explaining what I was doing and why the plants were in a certain place. And at the end of that, he looked at me and he said, "I really like it. I wish I could do something like that with my yard. I live in a different municipality, and I'm not sure it's allowed, but I really like it, but somebody did complain and I have to respond to the complaint." So I think it's a lovely thing that what I get now is I get people bringing their children by. Anybody that I meet up with kids, if I know where I have caterpillars, I invite them to come in the yard and let the kids look at the caterpillars, look at the plants. And I have people that bring their kids by the yard on a regular basis to see what's in the yard today. What a change. It's wonderful.
That's awesome. I think it's just a matter of time before one of my Hialeah neighbors also files a complaint on all the plants I have here. So I may reach out to you at some point. Gwen, what do I do?
Wait, I have maybe a little solution. You know how you mow around and you leave that patch? Well, there's these little picket fence. It's only about 2 feet tall, and it's about 60 feet long. Lowe's and Home Depot has them, and I just put one of those around the patch and make it look all nice and neat.
You know
And
that,
then it's like, there's no weeds here. That's a, you know, a picket fence garden, you know.
and
So-
that, Barbara, that's a wonderful comment, and that is absolutely perfect for people that want to do more informal landscaping, is to put a border around it. Some
Mhm.
years ago, we had more discussions about this, but having a border where you have mowed lawn here, and then you have a border, and then you have something a little wild looking, that border transforms it into, I want this. You might not like it, it might not be to your taste, but I clearly want this because I bordered it off, and next to it is this neat thing. Now, if you come to my house, I have a little strip of grass. I have a setback of about 4 feet from the sidewalk to where my wildflowers start. And that's exactly the strategy that I'm using as well. That neat, trimmed, mowed grass is my contrast to the informal parts of my yard, and it makes it look wanted.
I saw on chat that James Gross also has a question. Gwen, you mean you don't have more time now that you are retired?
My retirement adventure has been an absolute adventure, and it started with, who in the world? Nobody warned me how much paperwork it was going to take to retire. Paperwork took precedence, and trying to figure my way around, you know, the whole retirement scene, and Medicare, and what to do about my pension check, and all of that, and some of you might know my partner had died about 9 months before I retired, so I've also been busy with settling his affairs as well. So that actually took up a good chunk of time, and I told a couple people, no projects for 2021, not going to do it. And I see Steve Woodmansey has put brash into the chat, which is the way to get your informal landscaping in concert with the neighborhood. But, you know, it's been a little bit busy. And then I had the usual, you know, you keep hearing about people that retire and then they have medical problems. Well, I had it too, and have survived it. And so I've been a little busy. But I'm just now starting to think about, well, what else to do with this time? I'm getting to the point where I wake up and have to look at my watch to tell what day of the week it is. So it's time to be thinking about other things now.
All right. Does anybody else have any more questions? Again, you can feel free to unmute yourself to ask.
All right, come on, everybody unmute and say, bravo, great project. Thank you, Barry Benton, for starting it. Thank you, Gwen, for presenting it.
Yay.
Thank you, Gwen. That was
Thank
great.
you so much.
Yay,
Oh, yeah, what a
outstanding.
fabulous
Gwen.
project.
Gwen.
Thanks, Gwen.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. I didn't think I'd have this big an audience.
We love you.
Oh, man, that
We
green
miss
person.
you.
Oh.
She's lovable and a fashionista.
And we have a few more on
Always.
YouTube too, Gwen. So it's not just the 25 to 30 folks we have here.
Oh, great.
What is there?
All right, well, everyone, I think that might wrap up today's program. We're really looking forward for next month's with Steve Woodmansey's presentation, which will be an extension.
Yeah, bring raffle plants.
Yes,
Oh, God, yes.
it's about
Yes.
time we get back to things. So I'm very much looking
All right,
forward to
bring
it and seeing
something
some of you
nobody
in
can
person.
find. All right. Great,
Thank
guys.
you
I
all.
hope we can do it. Fingers crossed. Go away.
Absolutely,
Omicron.
absolutely. it seems with you know, COVID trends, it's supposed to be safer by this time next month. So
Yeah,
um,
we hear.
yeah.
All right.
But again, thank you, Gwen, and thank you everybody for coming in, and we're looking forward for the next one, and I hope to see a lot of you guys there.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic.
Thanks,
Loved it.
everyone.
Good night, everyone. Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care, everybody.